Welcome everyone. We are live from the Advanced Manufacturing Expo here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'm so honored to be here at the Metal Marketing Creators booth. Today I have the absolute honor to talk to Brenda Ratcliffe. So Brenda, let's get into it. Can you give us a little bit of information about you and your current role?
Absolutely. So I work as the Distribution Strategy Manager for Castrol Industrial. We are actually celebrating our 125th year of operating in business. We were founded in the UK by Charles Wakefield, basically 125 years ago. And through the evolution of automation and industrial developments, our product lines and our products have changed vastly over the tenure of our existence. Castrol is very much a brand synonymous with performance and racing. Engine oils definitely is sort of our claim to fame. We sort of have two divisions within Castrol. We are the B2B and the B2C. So the B2C is what you see on the shelves of O'Reilly, of Walmart, of Napa, basically convention engine oil and synthetic engine oils. But there's this other division, the little known division, that is really more focused on B2B applications. And it's the industrial division. We will basically supply lubricants, greases, and performance fluids to manufacturers. That's why we're here. So customers like Ford, John Deere, those that manufacture components for the automotive machinery manufacturing, aerospace, steel. We have wind turbine that we service. And there's just a whole array of manufacturing that we service and have serviced for many years. I manage our distribution strategy for that network. I've been with the company for 28 years. Wow. So we are owned by BP. They bought us in 2000. So for most of my career, I've been a division of BP. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. How did you end up in this business?
Oh gosh, this is about me, not you. Well, I got here totally by accident. I didn't see myself coming here. COVID kind of pushed me towards the industry, and I've been here for about 4 years.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. There's a lot of variety. So it keeps it exciting.
Yeah, when you said you got into like different areas of like automation, automotive, all that stuff. I feel like that's something that I didn't even expect coming into this. So we're everywhere, all over the world, right?
Well, it's funny. I was telling some of my colleagues earlier, when I was a little girl, I would see something, right, that was manufactured, and I just assumed in my world, in my little head, that everything was poured into a mold, and it came out of the mold and it got into the shelf. I had no idea this world of machining and actually forming machine parts and putting them together and assembling them created the automobile, created the airplane, created these other things. It just seemed like everything had to be, I guess in my world, it was very much synonymous with the world of 3D printing now.
Right.
But I just thought everything was poured and cast into a mold and it just came out. So this concept of machining was something that was like, it blew my mind. I got out of college, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like all this stuff has to be machined. There's got to be very, tight tolerances in machining so things work properly.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I'm not going to get on an airplane unless, you know that those parts are manufactured to a very specific spec and they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You will barely catch me on an airplane at all anyway, but knowing that we're safe makes it that much better.
Absolutely.
So how did you get into it? Did you have any schooling? Did somebody push you this way? How did you get into it?
So it's a really funny story, happenstance. I went to Purdue University.
Okay.
And I was very much interested in STEM before it was STEM.
Okay.
So I loved chemistry. My high school chemistry teacher, Mr. Crable, made me fall in love with chemistry, and my mind works in such a way where I like everything to make sense. So balancing equations was something that was so satisfying to me. In my worldly order, everything made sense. Inputs equal outputs, and a way to make those equations balance was fascinating. I think even more fascinating was the hands-on lab parts, where you could actually pour two components into something and make a reaction.
Right.
So catalysts and all the, magic in chemistry, and it really is magic, really drove me to a concentration in chemistry.
Okay.
So I went to Purdue because that was really known as a good science school in the state of Indiana. And I sort of just fell in love with the whole concept of chemistry, and there's so many aspects of chemistry. There's organic, there's inorganic, there's analytical, there's physical. They were very difficult courses. I kind of went from being on the dean's list to barely being able to get those grades that I needed to graduate, but thankfully I graduated. And then I thought that chemistry would lead me into a more creative space. I guess I would say a more female dominated space. In my mind, I was going to be the genius behind creating earth-shattering formulations for lipstick and perfumes. And so cosmetic chemistry was sort of my, I think, passion. My minor concentration was art history, and then I found that this world of art restoration existed, where you could actually go to school to become a restorer of these wonderful pieces of art. So those were my two main sort of focuses. And then there was this question of, wow, okay, so you have to go on and get more schooling.
Right.
And I'm thinking, okay, I want to go get my master's. And so the practical side of me was like, well, wait a minute, before I get a master's, maybe I should get some practical job experience. I did a cooperative through Purdue University in a laboratory. I was working in a customer analytical lab at a place called Nalco. It was out of Naperville, Illinois.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, I'm really bored behind a lab bench because I love people. I love interacting. I love the challenge of negotiating. I was sort of in a bit of a jam. And I talked to my career counselor, and I'm like, I just don't know that I've done this right. I really love chemistry, but I don't like being a chemist. She says, well, there are jobs for people like you. I'm thinking, oh, great, people like me. But she talked to me a little bit about administrative, and she's like, there's sales. There's so many things that having a technical background can help with. You could go into chemical sales. You could go into business management. You could do all these things for a chemical company. So the future didn't look as bleak. So I kind of focused more then on sort of the business end of chemistry. I got out, and of course I was like everybody else, scrambling for a job. The big employer in the area is Procter & Gamble, because I grew up in southeastern Indiana, about an hour from Cincinnati. So I did do a summer internship there, actually at Folgers and Jif. They were actually working on a reduced fat peanut butter formulation then. I just started interviewing, and a friend of my sister's was in chemical sales for a company called Calgon. I did chemical sales for Calgon, actually moved to Michigan and was calling on places like General Motors. Saginaw Steering Gear was actually my first company that I called on and got an account with. And it was all about water treatment chemicals and in chemicals to solve problems. So one of the big things they were in was paint detackification. So if you're painting a par, most of the time that overspray has to be captured in either a waterfall or some sort of way to manage the paint overspray so that it doesn't pollute the environment or the factory, or so that people don't inhale it, etc. They had a very high-tech line of polymers that would actually detackify, capture the paint within these waterfall paint booths, and then make it fit for disposal. I did that for about a year or two. Then I decided I wanted to get back to Indiana. So through a couple series of jobs and temporary assignments, I ended up at Castrol through a friend I had at that Saginaw Steering Gear plant in the world of chemical management, and really focused on engineering and problem solving for customers. I haven't looked back through a couple series of jobs. I mean, 28 years later, here I am. Sort of forgot about the art restoration and the cosmetic chemistry because I fell in love with what I did.
Right. Is there anything that keeps you in the industry, like anything specific?
Yeah, so I think a couple things. Culture is huge, right? I've seen the culture change vastly since when I entered the industry and where I am now. So diversity, equity, and inclusion. Women are much more, I think, interested in the industry because it's not strictly a men's network anymore. It used to be very, very dominated by men. You see more and more women entering technical professions. I think there's some unique skill sets that women bring, problem solving, like I spoke about, and also attention to detail.
Of course.
So I think that there is definitely a role for women to play. I think the fact that it's always a dynamic, changing environment, so if you get bored doing one thing all the time, this is a great sort of industry to look at from the perspective of manufacturing, engineering, because your days vary greatly.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of variety in what you do. Specifically for me, the culture piece is the culture of my company. It's very performance driven, but yet it is very much committed to quality. It's very much committed to problem solving again. That word keeps coming up. I have stayed because I have always found that there is a very specific mission for our company. We have very high standards and very specific metrics to which we manage to. And there's always a challenge. It's a challenging environment, it's a fair environment, and it's very open to mothers, to all ethnicities, to all people, including the LGBTQ community. I mean, it's definitely evolved to such a way that, and I don't want to use this because it's kind of a cliche, but the Good Old Boys Network, it's evolved from that vastly. So that is what's kept me interested. It's been a very rewarding career. And I raised 2 children with it, and they're very interested in professions that drive performance. They're very interested in committing themselves. They have a very good work ethic. I think they've seen that through the years that hard work pays off. And so, kind of watching me through the years has instilled in them the desire to achieve as well.
Right. I especially love that you said something about how it's a challenging environment. Because I feel like everyone that I speak to here loves that about manufacturing. Because I'll tell my husband one day, I'll be going to work, I'll be like, today's going to be so busy. Oh, what do you have to do? I go, I don't know what I do. That's what I'm doing until I get there. But it's going to be busy. So that is definitely an upside and a benefit if you're the type of person that likes that stuff.
Yeah, and I think for me, there were quite a few challenging courses in my workload in college, in physics and calculus, and these things were not something that you could just go in and do. You had to really use your problem-solving skills. I don't use a lot of derivatives and integrals and thermodynamics in my day-to-day job. What I do use is kind of looking at all my facts, looking at what my variables are, and then trying to come up with a solution.
Right.
And the other thing is that can even involve managing personalities.
It's very true.
Because you know what? Not any of us are the same. All of us think differently, and we have to take everyone's perspective into consideration when we're managing a solution. And you can't do solutions in a vacuum by yourself.
True.
So
very true.
I think that's just kind of what keeps me so motivated.
So was there any challenges you faced coming into the industry? Were there any people that helped you as you were coming into it?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I would say the challenges were, wanting to give up. You had to knock on a lot of doors. Being young, out of school, and a female, I don't think people took you all that seriously. Like, okay, she's here today, she'll be gone tomorrow, she won't last, she'll quit.
Right.
And it wasn't my first job out of college, it was my 3rd job, right? So the job I have now was my 3rd job. And I got out of college in 93, and 1996 was when I hired him with Castrol. So it was my 3rd job in 3 years. It really took a little bit of trial and error to find my home, my forever home. But I had a lot of people advocating for me. One of my managers at Castrol, his name was Dave First. He gave me an opportunity to manage people that I had never had before. So he had a lot of faith in me, and sometimes there are people who would tell me, maybe you don't believe you can do it, but I know you can do it. And when they told me that, it gave me the confidence to try and the confidence to fail.
Right.
Because you have to fail to be able to be successful. You're not going to be, perfect. And I think for me it was finding my voice, and I really didn't find it till 2018 because I never trusted it. I always kind of had this feeling like, well, there's always somebody that's smarter than me, somebody that knows the answers. Nobody's going to really trust me. It was because I didn't trust myself. I had it within me for a long time.
Right.
And it took a lot of trial and error and really stepping out of my comfort zone. I went to a really cool seminar, a 6-day immersive seminar, and it was like Brenda Ratcliffe version 2.0 emerged. It really took that to kind of be like, wait a minute, I have a voice, I'm smart, I'm capable, and really took that sort of belief in myself. So, at 48 years old, I kind of found my voice and found my confidence. And now when people question me, I don't necessarily believe them. I'm like, you know what, I'm very settled in who I am. I know the answer. So if you doubt me, that's fine, but I'll challenge you all day, every day.
Right. I absolutely love that because I am the same way. Like, I had that one mentor when I started that helped me and gave me the confidence, and then after that, it was just like, I'm a whole new person.
Yeah.
So I totally relate to that. So speaking to that, is there any advice you have for young women coming into the industry? Any resources, any groups they should join?
My gosh. So it depends really kind of what you struggle with. So I love this phrase. I borrowed it from the gentleman that did my seminar. His name's Matthew Hussey. If any of you guys are out there on social media, he's got 2 bestsellers out there. Mostly he's kind of been grouped into this, stereotype of love life, right? But it's really not at all what he does. What he does is helps people find who they are inside and gives them confidence to go out and be the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
When you are the best version of yourself, then you will naturally attract the best partner for you. The phrase that he used that said, confidence does not equal competence. So you can be confident, but not good at what you do at all, and you're a disaster building the competence, the capability, and then being competent and confident in that competence that makes you unstoppable.
Right.
I'm always of a quiet humility, but build the capability. Once you have the capability, then you can be really confident to go in these conversations and say, I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
I have something valuable to offer. I'm not a flash in the pan. You always hear the phrase, all show and no go, or all sizzle and no sausage.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be the problem solver and to be the sausage and not so glamorous.
Right.
But then when push comes to shove, you have the fortitude and the tenacity and the capability to do what you actually say you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Pair that with confidence. You're unstoppable.
You're a rock star, right?
You're a rock star.
That's awesome. So are there any groups anybody like women should join when they're coming into the industry?
I think there's a bunch. Industrial Supply Association,
Okay.
where I come from, has a women in industry. I think that's good. I mean, heck, there is so much creator space out there. If you go on Instagram, there are just so many resources. For me, it's less about the actual trade that you ply and the mindset you bring in. You've heard of Jay Shetty. I love him.
Yeah.
I think he's a genius. Again, there's some motivational people. Matthew Hussey, again, is one of my favorites. I think he was a big student of Tony Robbins. Jamie Kern-Glima, she's out there with her podcast now, kind of the whole story of it cosmetics. I really feel like capability and confidence is an inside job.
Perfect.
And so I think it's the psychology behind how you want to go about what you want to do.
Right.
And once you develop sort of that personal brand, being rooted in who you are and knowing who you are, and then it really doesn't matter what industry you go into.
Okay. No, I like that.
I think it's really, incumbent on you to do the inside work.
Okay.
And if I had to, give myself a personal brand, it's sort of a brand that's rooted in humility. And I'm good with that. Just rooted in humility, rooted in kind of earning your stripes,
Right.
doing the work, and then, really uplifting those around you, bringing them along. Passionate about, helping the younger generation sort of find their voice and find their talent cool. And I've spoken with Emily before our podcast. I think critical for manufacturing is there's a lot of really unglamorous jobs out there that are really necessary for society to function optimally. Making things, the skilled trades are so necessary, and we can't lose the art of what made the United States sort of a pioneer.
Right.
Germany's known for excellence in engineering. All of those things are so important to kind of keep driving us forward.
Right. No, I love that. And I think a lot of people listening to that will get inspired
Yeah, I hope
and
so.
be inspired to find out how to, like those motivational things that you were talking about, how to use that to benefit them.
You hear it all the time. What's your why?
Right.
Find your why.
And I don't think I've ever answered that, so that's a good thing to put out there. So
Hey,
what's your why?
What's your why? Find your why, and it can change, right?
Yeah.
Some days I'm still finding my why.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to get complacent.
No.
Right? Always find something that keeps driving you. It gives you the energy. And important. My father's 94 years old, and he still has his why. He had a stroke earlier this year, but he didn't give up. He has a farm, he has cattle, and he goes out and he takes care of the farm every single day. That's his why. It keeps him going. So I think it's really critical to learn what your why is to keep you going.
Right.
For your longevity and your health and your tenacity.
Personally and in business.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So is there anywhere that people can find you? Your company, any information about you?
So Castrol.com. If you look anywhere on Castrol Engineering, we're on LinkedIn. We have a page. I have an Instagram handle. It's Brenda S. Ratcliffe, I believe. So I'm out there from a personal perspective. But yes, definitely on LinkedIn, Brenda Ratcliffe. Happy to connect, happy to engage, and just really honored to be here. And thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Perfect. Of course. Glad to have you on. And honestly, I feel inspired from this conversation.
Thank
so
you.
I'm so glad you joined us
Well,
today.
thanks for giving me a lot of good nuggets to think about today.
Of course. It was great chatting with you.